Seattle, they've gone from the Club World Cup to capturing the Leagues Cup, dismantling Inter Miami handily with basically a second string side, and are probably playing some of the best soccer in the league right now, not to mention all, the previous MLS Cups and Champions Cup and stuff like that. Would you say, just based off consistency of success, that the Sounders are the model MLS organization, or is it maybe a team like Columbus who rose from the ashes to win titles and be a giant in the East again?
Yeah, I've always said to this, to anybody I've talked to on the record, to me, Seattle's the gold standard in terms of foundation and principles. I think you said it the best, consistency. This is 2009, the very first game I remember watching. They've just gone from strength to strength. And it was so great to see that in the Leagues Cup for them, because I thought it was a situation where the principles of their program and the character of their program won out, and you're seeing it bear fruit. All those kids they bring through. I mean, the way they don't just focus on youth, they bring their youth through and they flourish. Paul Rothrock jerseys being swapped for Leo Messi jerseys before kickoff. And then he comes in and grabs an absolute
brilliant marketing.
Yeah, but they're on point in that regard too. So for me, this is no disrespect to any other team, including the Galaxy, but in terms of the principles, the foundation, the stability, and the consistency, I don't see any other team that has done as well as long as the Seattle Sounders.
Yeah. What's interesting about that too is, like, we've had a lot of people in chat. I see it on my timeline as well on X, C Miles, of, why can't the Galaxy do this? Like, why can't the Galaxy, develop and nurture young players like Rothrock, Jackson Reagan, the list goes on. And one of the things I brought up was, in the end, like, teams will never deviate fully from who they are and what they are in terms of DNA. And for the Galaxy, that's always been Hollywood. That's always been Showtime. That's always been bringing in the stars. So I think there is a little bit of truth to that in terms of a balance. Like, hey, we do need to bring up Mo Cuevas, Jalen Neal, your Julian Araujo's. Those talents need to be nurtured. But I don't think we'll ever be a Seattle, and that's never going to be a reality. I mean, what say you on that?
I think it's a fair point. And star power is a necessity here, but it's so interesting. Can you craft a star? Because you go back to the days, or the early days. Kobe Jones, Kevin Hartman. They were crafted here, and they became big names. I'm going way back. And so I think, it's a very good point. You need star power here, and you need the big name signings. The Royces and such. The Zlatans, the Rickies, and it's always going to be a strength of the side, a staple of an LA side. But it needs to be balanced, I believe, and you need a foundation, because that's just one player. You need a foundation. The foundation are these young guys that you bring through your program. And it provides stability. It provides belief for the youngsters who have yet to come through here. They want to come to the Galaxy. Every kid within, the border of Oregon and California wants to go play for the Seattle Sounders, right now. And you can see why. I mean, it's the quintessential setup. So, but yeah, it's a fair point. But trying to strike that balance. And I think MLS in the last 5 or 6 years, since we've seen Zlatan leave, I think it's kind of gotten away from that. We've seen a huge influx of, some really good young South American talent, primarily from Argentina, come in here and take advantage of the real disastrous kind of state of their league at some points. So we're getting away from that model a little bit, and it's great to see that come through. But trying to strike that perfect balance is something that the Galaxy are going to have to learn how to do. I think Will is going to be very attuned to that. I think he always strikes the master stroke, if you will, and I think there's going to be a huge offseason, obviously, but trying to find that balance. I think, like Ananda mentioned, between the star power, that star signing, and a solid foundation of guys that can step up and provide the foundation and do the running for perhaps a player that can't do all the running, like you see with Argentina, for instance, and the way they built it around Messi. It's got a solid foundation of players, similar, akin to that, where you're going to need to prop up your big man, with about a good supporting cast. So that's going to be the secret ingredient to the secret sauce, I think.
Yeah, and you're right, because I mean, we have the right guy at the helm, and one thing that stuck with me that you mentioned, I think it was our first or second show we did together, is Will Kuntz, you said, represented a paradigm shift for this organization. And I still believe that's the case. Just hasn't worked out yet this year, and I'm hoping that corrects itself back to the mean next year.
Yeah, I mean, they mortgaged their future in 2024. They went for it, and this is the price you pay. And, and unfortunately, you didn't think that the price tag was going to be as large. But you also look at this Galaxy team. They also have this spine literally ripped out of this team. And anytime you have that many players, Brugman, you go to keeper, Dayon, Ricky going out injured, you lose Markey. That's the spine of your team. And anybody loses players of that gravitas and magnitude who are so important to that championship run, of course, it's going to have a massive effect. And not only, do you take a step back in terms of quality, you have to learn how to play differently. This is not last year's team. They've got to learn how to play differently. You're having to do without your star player who's, been out all season. And that makes that task much more difficult, trying to blend in these other guys. So yeah, it's been a Herculean task, but it's kind of the price you paid. And so, but at this point, I think, like we were talking about, looking forward and building that spine back up is going to be job one, because there is a lot of work to do, and it does bring some extra relevancy, as Rob was saying. We were talking about earlier about the rest of this season, where these guys know that that's coming. They know this is going to be a massive offseason. Their jobs are on the line. They're playing for contracts. Am I good enough to come back? Am I going to be part of Kuntz's and Greg's setup next year? Because the knives are starting to get sharp, and we know how ruthless they can be. We saw it with Gaston. Within a day after winning the title, it's like, here's your papers, thank you very much. So that's the nature of in this league. So they know that, and so I think this is one of the reasons why we saw a little more resilience perhaps against Houston. And you're going to see a little extra edge for these players, a little more motivation for them to play, because futures and jobs are on the line. That can be a very good motivating factor.
I mean, it's kind of funny because you mentioned at the top, like, where was this? Like they, they're playing for those jobs now, but like they should have been playing for those jobs at the top. And it's just it's kind of frustrating.